Greetings, it is I, Tantus Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It's time to continue our discussion on D20 Modern, the modern take on 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons. Where we last left off, we were talking about combat, fighting things out, which is very important in a game based upon a lot of weapons and gunfights and such. This time I'm going to talk about two things, modifiers in combat, and special initiative-based actions. So let's talk about modifiers in combat, because there are a lot of things based on the situation, tactical movement, various kind of situations and the board and what's going on around you that will modify how things occur in combat. It is going to be entirely up to your GM to determine what kind of modifiers are out there. There is a table in the book that lists a number of modifications to both positive and negative to melee attacks and ranged attacks based upon what kind of situation the defender is in and what kind of situation the attacker is in. So we'd look at both of these and your GM would determine which of them would apply to the overall situation and give them to your attack effectively. They would list them in combat effectively ahead of time and you would change your situation, therefore your modifiers would change. Now the most common of all of them, of course, is cover. It is actually one of the most important ones. Cover means I've got something blocking part of my body, making me harder to hit. If I have something from the waist down, it's called quarter cover because it's not blocking any of my vitals. Let's say it's halfway across my body, that's half cover. There are various other degrees of cover. The book gives a chart listing the degrees of cover if you want to look up all of them, and gives examples of what it means to be under these covers. Up until total cover, which would mean I have a wall in front of me, I'm on the other side of it, you're over there, I'm over here, we really don't see each other. There's like no connection whatsoever to us fighting at that point in time. Now, cover has a number of benefits that it gives. First off, it gives a bonus to your defense. The more cover you have, the more defense bonus I would get. The second bonus I would get was, of course, bonuses to reflex. Now, this only applies if, let's say, I've got a wall in my way and a grenade drops on the other side of the wall. I get a bonus to reflex based upon this cover because it is on the other side of the cover from me. If it was on the same side as cover as me, I wouldn't get that reflex bonus. So it has to be opposite the cover for me to get it, but I would get that reflex bonus to sort of duck out of the way possibly to avoid what's going on. Now it's important to note that when I have cover against someone, they usually have cover against me. It goes back and forth and reciprocates. The exception of this is if I'm using ranged attacks usually. For example, if I'm in a window, shooting out of that window at someone, I've got more cover against them, and then they're out in the open, They don't have any cover against me. I'm not getting any cover by shooting out of this window, but they would have cover, or I would have cover against them when trying to defend against their shots back. So as you can see, in that situation, it would not be reciprocated. But on the other hand, if we're like around a wall, melee fighting with each other, that's going to apply there. Now, the other type of important thing that adds to defensiveness is concealment. This acts much differently than cover, but also provides it. Concealment kind of obscures the ability for someone to view and target someone on the battlefield. Effectively, that's what it is. It's something is happening. Usually it's something like fog or darkness or something else that makes my vision of the target more obscure, and it makes me harder to get that exact location of where they are. Concealment, just like cover, has degrees that you will be looking at. Again, there is a chart in the book that will list the degrees of concealment you would have, and it provides a percentage. Now, what this percentage is a miss percent. Now, this miss percent, it applies after I've successfully attack rolled. So what I would do is, let's say I have amount of concealment, or my opponent has amount of concealment that I have to get through to target them. I'd make my attack roll first. Let's say I hit. That's the first thing. If I miss, doesn't even matter. If I hit, then I have to check the concealment. I would roll the percentile, and if I would get the percentile, I was a little off because of the concealment. I missed them. And concealment ranges from very low percentages all the way up until total concealment, which is 50%, which is basically you have a 50-50 chance of hitting anybody. It's a shot in the dark, effectively, is what it is. You might get them, you might not get them. You at least have to know where they generally are. Now, the thing about concealment is it doesn't add together. If I have multiple sources of concealment, only the best one applies, and the percentages also do not add together. The best percentage applies. So if I'm in a fog cloud in the dark, the darkness would take over from the fog cloud. Fog cloud would be less concealment than the darkness, but they would both technically be there at the same time, so if a light should come on in my fog cloud or something, I would still have fog cloud. Now there's another important factor on helpless foe in combat. This is one that's important to talk about. It's an important modifier to what's going on here. So if someone's helpless, let's say I'm just attacking them when they're helpless, their defense, they don't get as much of it as they would. They're not doing anything to defend against you. It's 5 plus their size modifier. That's it. So whatever their size modifier plus 5, that's what their defense would be. Because they're just lying there helpless. They can't use any kind of dexterity, any other kind of bonuses. I can just, poke at the pointy bits, easily get them. There are a couple of actions I can do. If I'm not adjacent to them and I want to hit them with a ranged attack, I can take a full round action and get plus 5 to my shot to do this. So that means if I'm a really bad shot and I'm like more than 5 feet away and I want to shoot that guy that's lying on the ground, I can take the full round action, get my bonus plus 5, and shoot them. It's the chances of me missing them are very slim at that point in time because I got plus 5. On the other hand, if I'm using melee or adjacent with a ranged weapon, I can coup de grace. So if I'm like up next to them, I can coup de grace with a stabby weapon or shot to the head sort of thing. A coup de grace is a full round action. If you're using it next to another enemy, it does provoke an attack of opportunity, so be careful about that. What it would do is it would be an automatic hit when I would use it, automatic critical, and if they should survive the damage I am dealing, they have to make a fortitude save, DC 10 plus the damage I dealt them, or die. Effectively, I've shot them in the head or stabbed them in the head, and it's very little chances that I didn't maybe I got, unlucky and didn't get the right spot or something, but more than likely I've just, shunk and they're dead. You could also use a knockout blow in this situation, basically to keep them, maybe they're only unconscious temporarily and you want to make sure they're down and out for the count for a while. Then you'd, of course, use the knockout blow. Knockout blow is another full round action, and you would have to use something like your fist or a weapon that does non-lethal damage, or if you're using a melee weapon that you could choose to do non-lethal damage with, you'd have to take a -4 to do it, so you'd pummel them to the side. You'd still have to make an attack roll on this one. So you do have to hit that AC of 5 plus their size modifier to do the knockout blow. And again, as I said, full round action. It also provokes an attack of opportunity. It's going to do automatic critical hit. So your criticaling is what you're doing. You're doing critical hit damage to the target. But it, of course, is non-lethal damage. And it follows the exact same rules of non-lethal damage of possibly knocking them out with this damage. And, doing the same kind of rules of thunk, they're out cold. Now let's talk about the 2 special initiative actions. First one is the delay. The delay means when I'm in combat, and let's say I rolled really high on initiative, but everybody else rolled lower than me. I don't know what to do. I don't know what my friends are going to do. I don't know what these enemies are going to do. I don't know if they're enemies yet. I know that we've gotten to this sort of situation. We have our weapons out. We're ready to fight. But I don't know if they're really going to be really aggressive or more defensive. I don't know what really to do. I can choose to delay. I effectively am voluntarily dropping my initiative. Then, when any of these folks act, I can choose to put my new initiative in right after them. Basically, I am moving my initiative below theirs. And the thing is, I'm not interrupting them. I'm going after them. I'm reacting to them in a new situation. I'm watching what happens and reacting. I'm inserting myself in a new point in time in the initiative. Now, when you're delaying, if you wait until everyone else has gone in the round, you either have to then choose to take your action or you lose it until the next turn. Effectively, you've delayed way too long after everyone else has gone. Now, if multiple people are delaying, then it comes down to higher initiative, better initiative scores, better dexterities. Whoever has the better, or the higher initiative, or the better dexterity, etc., things like that, gets advantage in the delaying situation, which means they get to choose more or less. That means the other people get to choose first, and then they get to choose. So it goes down the list of relevance depending on, if I had acted first and delayed, and then someone else delayed after me, I would have the advantage in choosing after them to do it. I could say oh, I want to insert myself now. That's fine. They would have to insert themselves after me, of course, if they're delaying. Or if they should, we get to the end of the round, they'd have to choose first if they're going to act then or lose the action. Then I would choose. I still get that advantage of I get the final say because I chose to delay first. Now, the other special initiative action, of course, is the ready. Ready means I am preparing an action for something else occurring, that when it happens, I'm ready to do something. I'm looking for some kind of trigger that's setting me off. On the course of my turn, I can still take my move action, but instead of an attack action, I am choosing to ready. Now, this means that I have chosen something that, like, oh, when something happens, I'm going to do this. And it will have to be effectively the same as an attack action. It might be when someone moves up to me, I stab them with my sword. Or when someone pops out of cover, I shoot them with my gun. Something like that. I set up for something that when it happens during the turn, I interrupt them and take my action. And I find myself above them in the initiative. I basically find myself in a new point in the initiative, kind of above them, kind of placed there because I've interrupted them now. I've changed what I was doing. I've kind of readied an action to blast or to stab them or to whatever. I've prepared something ahead of time. Now, the act of readying does not provoke an attack of opportunity, but whatever act I do ready might. So that means if I ready to shoot a gun, that could still provoke an attack of opportunity. When I readied the first place, that didn't do anything. Now, again, if I reached the end of the turn and I haven't been triggered, then I would have just lost the action. I would have been ready for it. Nothing happened. So that's it for today. I introduced you to, of course, modifiers to combat. I talked about mainly, of course, cover and concealment, the two things that are going to modify your attack rolls more than anything else. I talked about attacking helpless foes and coup de grace and knockout blows. And then I moved into the special initiative actions with the delaying, waiting for something to happen, and the readying, preparing for something to happen. In the next one, I'm going to talk about special attack actions that can be done in combat. So if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Shows you support the channel, the Empire, and the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, linked in the description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.